Back with our first race review of the 2026 season. The Australian GP is in the books and a 1-2 finish for Mercedes just as they qualified. George Russell winning ahead of Kimi Antonelli. The two Ferraris in behind. Charles Leclerc completing the podium with Lewis Hamilton in fourth. I mean, I'm not really sure what we were expecting going into this one, Sam. It's a question that we've been asking for many months now. But Mercedes have got to be pretty happy with how things are going.
Yeah, I hate that was the only thing that I probably was expecting to happen. The Ferrari launch off the start and the Mercedes 1-2 finish. It was the only predictable thing in what turned out to be a Grand Prix of chaos, confusion. Not entirely sure how it's all working. There's a lot going on. We're going to break some of it down, of course, in the show. Harry, you are awake. You've made it. I know this is tough for you early morning, so well done.
It is tough. We have it tough as Europeans, obviously.
Oh, God. No, not the first race review.
I'm only joking.
Our biggest sissy in the world that listens has just turned off. Good.
We certainly had a race.
Yes, we're going to run through everything that happened in the Australian Grand Prix. Plenty of retirements, plenty of drivers finishing slightly out of positions that we'd expect. But we will start out front with the Mercedes duo finishing 1-2. George Russell taking the race win after converting that pole position from yesterday. Kimi Antonelli, not the smoothest weekend. He had that crash, obviously, in FP3 yesterday. But a great job by the Mercedes mechanics to put that car back together for him to qualify second. And he took advantage of that, finishing second as well. I dare say, though, Sam, maybe not quite as much of an advantage as they showed in qualifying, albeit with that first and second place. Pretty impressive nonetheless, though.
It was impressive. The car is mighty. George Russell, despite saying that he absolutely hates driving the cars after qualifying and they're tough to drive, then celebrates the race by going, very nice. I like this car. I like this engine, which is an interesting reaction from George
I
Russell.
wanted to strip him of the win. And I know that sounds severe.
No, I think it's fair. I think it's a fair punishment.
I don't know. There's a tiny part of me that loves how incredibly uncool and cringy he is, because I feel like if he wasn't an F1 driver, he could be the fourth member of this show.
I don't know. The Borat impression versus the Fred Flintstone impression from a few years ago. Like, it's a close run thing.
Yeah. My man's got characters. As someone who's got characters, I can relate. I respect the way he does it, okay? At least he's more successful than me.
Next game.
I'll see you, George. I'll see you. Fair play to you, though, George Russell, because it was really interesting to hear the cool-down room, the way he broke down what happened throughout the Grand Prix. And with these new regulations, we were expecting the drivers to go through some difficulties. And difficulties they went through. Both Mercedes cars turned up to the start grid and neither had any battery available to them. Kimi Antonelli, of course, suffering far worse than George Russell. So he did well to manage that when Charles Leclerc is coming at you like a blimmin' rocket down the start-finish straight. And then numerous times, apparently, going up against Charles Leclerc, he goes, I thought I pressed overtake. I thought I pressed boost. Didn't have it on. Just forgot to press it. Or didn't turn it on properly. Good. That's what we like to hear.
Mercedes going to be real scary when they figure out how the sport works.
George doesn't know what about half the buttons on the steering wheel do at the moment. And yet he still managed to win. The scariest part, I think, actually, in terms of confidence building for Mercedes is how on 38 lap-old tyres, they're still matching the times of the Ferraris, of the McLaren, of the Red Bull, who are in behind them. And it just felt like it got easier as the weekend went on. Good calls coming under the VSC, not replicated by either one of the Ferraris, which we'll get onto, but they seemed comfortable at every turn once things got going. And I thought good comeback from Kimi Antonelli, who did struggle off the line a bit more than Russell. So that's what they'll want to see. Both drivers maximising the performance. Their first 1-2 without Lewis Hamilton since, what was it, 1955 was quoted?
1955, yes.
Very relevant statistic. I'm glad they brought that
Hey, you were there.
I was me and Moss having a drink afterwards. It was great.
Oh, me and Mossy.
Me and Mossy.
I tell you what, I think George Russell is quickly going to become the most unpopular F1 driver on the grid amongst other F1 drivers. We mentioned yesterday how he was complaining about how difficult it was and thinking back to some other drivers who might have found things a little bit more difficult in a car that wasn't a Mercedes. I love that he's in the cool-down room telling Charles Leclerc, you were quick. It's like, no, you were quick, I think.
Slow.
Yeah, I really appreciate that from George Russell. If he keeps that up for the entire year, man's going to pick up enemies real fast.
My man's learnt PR from Toto Wolff.
True. Very true. We saw Harry last year, whenever George Russell won a race, which wasn't all that frequent, he basically, whenever he led a race, he went on to win it. He's done a fairly good job in his relatively young F1 career of taking advantage of opportunities when they come his way. Is this just another example of that?
I think so, yeah. He obviously, start aside, I'm still quite confused on how the Mercedes didn't have any battery after a whole formation lap.
What are you doing on that lap, lads?
Feels like the one priority, doesn't it?
What else are you doing?
Tyres, battery.
Charge your batteries. Anyway, well, that obviously hampered him, but yeah, the opportunity was there for the win. Obviously, strategically, Mercedes played the right call by pitting under the VSC, and then from there on in, Russell never really looked back. And even, aside from how good that car is in terms of how it deploys energy, etc., looks like it's a good car on its tyres too, which is a little bit worrying for everyone else. But yeah, I'm not a looker on the tyre whisperer, but
what about Mr. Saturday? We've had both of these come out this weekend.
No, neither. Not doing either. Not doing it. Yeah, it was a very, very assured performance from George Russell. Didn't panic when he lost the lead, and obviously there was a few back and forths with Leclerc at the start of the race, but he never really, apart from the lockup he made into turn one, there wasn't really any mistakes from him.
Yeah, and like you say, he didn't panic at the start when things weren't necessarily going 100% his own way. It's not like he was struggling at all. He was still very much in the mix with the likes of the Ferraris, but after going on pole position and being three quarters of a second quicker than anyone who wasn't a Mercedes, he might have been thinking, if I get into turn one and I'm leading, I might not see another car for the rest of this race apart from lapping the back markers. And that's not how it played out, at least in that first stint. But he stayed relatively composed, and the race came to him. Sure, it was, I'm not going to say it was handed to him, but it was maybe made slightly easier than it could have been otherwise, thanks to other teams' strategies. But he still had a race to win. He still had Antonelli behind him with an incentive to catch up to him. And Sam, you said this earlier, it felt more comfortable the further the race went in. And that's an ominous sign for Mercedes as we go into the next race in China. A quick word on Antonelli as well, Sam, because we know that this weekend could have very easily gone a different direction than it has done. He only ends up a few seconds back from George Russell. And I think at least on Sky Sports commentary, Martin Brundle at the end said that, paraphrasing here, he's probably going to give him a run for his money this year. Does this performance indicate that?
It's a very complimentary line from Martin Brundle. I want to see a few more performances of this car right at the very top. I do think that he got back to the front really well. He did have a tough start, got off the line slowly due to this battery issue, but he got back through some relatively quick cars very efficiently. He's battling with the likes of Norris further back, gets through Hajar and Lindblad, who make great starts really efficiently as well. And that's what I want to see from him. That's the really, really good stuff. And whilst you have this Leclerc, Russell, Hamilton and tail battle going on there for the top three, Antonelli calmly plugging away, closing down that gap really, really nicely. There was no faffing around. There was no taking his time to do it. Got the car together, got the laps in, and he was back in that fight well before the pit phase started to appear. So that's where I was really encouraged. The bit that I wasn't too encouraged by was, I think Russell held onto his tyres much better. And this is something that Antonelli is still learning. I do think that there's going to be times where that race management factor comes in a little more and Russell probably shows his experience. And that's okay. Antonelli's only in his second season. He might be in a title fight in his second season, which is a huge prospect for such a young man. I do think it's going to take some adapting to. But overall, very encouraged by what Kimi Antonelli is able to bring to the F1 grid. I think Mercedes will be going, our lineup's looking all right. They've delivered what we needed them to on their first time of asking. So they'll come away happy.
Harry, the only real competition that Mercedes faced today was Ferrari. Now, there was a decision to make under virtual safety car. Do you pit? It was, in theory, quite an early pit stop, but both Mercedes decided to take the opportunity. Both Ferraris decided not to. Was that a detrimental call for this race?
Yes, it was. Obviously, hindsight is a wonderful thing. And easy for us to sit here and say that Ferrari have messed up again on strategy, but they should have pit at least. What if they were set on the strategy that they obviously carried out? They stuck to their guns. I think they should have at least split them and done one. Pit Hamilton and see where they get to. And yeah, because there were so many unknowns going into this race. One of them also being around the tyres. Would it be a 1-stop or a 2-stop? Obviously, classic. It turned into a 1-stop anyway, really, for those at the front. But it's a shame Ferrari didn't do something else, because whilst I don't think overall they had, certainly in the latter half of the race, they didn't have the pace of the Mercedes. So, whether they have really been in that battle, I think it would have at least allowed them, it would have given them the opportunity to be in the battle that they didn't have after they did their stop later on in the race, because they came out like 10 seconds behind and they were 10 seconds behind for the rest of the race, basically. So, I don't think it would have won necessarily, but like I say, I think would have given the opportunity to be in that fight, and they weren't after they stuck to their guns.
It would have been at least interesting to see Ferrari, but it's nice to see that some things haven't changed. Yeah, I would have liked to have seen at least one of them go for this, and partly because I know we advocate splitting strategies a lot generally, but this is still such a learning phase for all the teams, including Ferrari. It would have been quite useful, I think, to have someone come into the pits relatively early, have someone go much longer. You start to get a sense of tyre life. You get to start to see maybe at some of these other races, a 2-stop's going to become a little bit more viable than they've been in previous years, or is it still going to be 1-stop related? They could have maybe stolen a march on some of the other teams in getting that data if they had gone ahead and done this, but instead they decide to leave both of them out. And I think they've probably, I say they've learned, I hope they've learned, there is a chance this year that F1 races are going to be decided strategically by energy management and not by tyres. I think in the previous era of F1, everything was so tyre limited. Like, you're not focused really on fuel. You weren't really focused on ERS or anything. It was all about tyres. Is it going to be a 1-stop? Is it going to be a 2-stop? Which tyres are you using? That will still be prominent this year. And it might just be the case that Mercedes are very good in that respect. But I do think we'll have more races this year where tyres are less of a conversation, and it's going to be far more on how you're harvesting that battery. How do you get that power back? And maybe Ferrari have learned a lesson today. And I use maybe for a very good reason.
Can I just say, by the way, I know it's not a Dami anymore, but it's good to hear Hamilton and his radio and his race engineer, on the radio, just disagreeing.
He wasn't as annoyed.
No. But traditions.
It is first race.
Yeah, they went straight in for big brain Strat, didn't they? They've really gone. It's our time to take the crown. Not like they haven't won it every other year. Yeah, I mean, Ferrari. I don't think it will make a difference to the result. I think Ferrari still finished 3-4. But
you're at close.
I think it would have been close. Yeah, I think Antigone still clears Leclerc and Hamilton. I think the gap was still too much, unfortunately. It was the pace on the old tyres that the Mercedes could deliver, I think, was really impressive. That even if it was just Leclerc on newer tyres, unlike Hamilton, who did get closer, Leclerc barely moved in the time difference. The hard tyres weren't really seemingly suiting the Ferrari. I think what worries me the most is what you've just raised, is that Hamilton is still screaming over the radio, why aren't you pitting one of us? Don't double stack me. Make sure that we're, what are we doing? And it's just so clear that race one, new engineer, some things just do not change. And Ferrari blundering a strategy opportunity is one of those things that they go, oh, it's Ferrari bingo time. Muck up the strategy. Tick. Still on plan A. Great. Well done, Ferrari. It resulted in no gain. You haven't lost anything. Norris was 35 seconds behind you. You're all the time in the world to play with, and yet they still don't take a risk and do something different. That's the worrying thing here. I don't think they would have gained anything if they had pitted.
Do you think overall, obviously the strategy is very much in the negative column for Ferrari's weekend, but if we look at absolutely everything though, Hamilton looked more comfortable versus Leclerc than he did at most races last year. They could be in McLaren's position, and we'll speak McLaren in a bit after the break. Red Bull had a DNF, and Verstappen couldn't overtake Norris. I know it's not perfect, but it could be a lot worse for Ferrari, I feel, at the moment.
If you gave Lewis Hamilton specifically a list of options coming out of race one where you said, all right, Ferrari aren't going to win the race. That's a done deal. You don't get that say. But, you might be on the podium. You might be less than a second away from Leclerc at the end of the race, or it could be like last year where you're sat in 8th or 9th at best and Leclerc still get. This is a good start for Lewis Hamilton. The way he was on the brakes, he had that awkward start coming out of turn 1, and he's alongside Lando Norris and Arvin Lindblad, and it's down the inside of a tricky turn 3. And you know what Lewis Hamilton does? He's late on the brakes and he gets the job done efficiently. We haven't seen that from Lewis Hamilton in like 2-3 years because he's just not confident going into these kinds of fights, side-by-side fights. And yet he comes out on top, delivers a really efficient result. Lewis Hamilton could be back in this level of new era that we're seeing here. It's risky, but I think if Ferrari can keep developing the car later on in the year when we see this compression ratio change the way it's tested, Ferrari could be in the fight here. And Hamilton could genuinely play a factor.
What do you think, Harry? It's I kind of think if you're going on a scale of 1 to 10 in terms of happiness, Ferrari can maybe be on about a 7 after this.
Yeah, I think that's probably fair. Is it a worry for us that if you want a multi-team championship battle, we've got to rely on Ferrari? I don't know.
Congrats, George Russell, on winning the championship and Mercedes for the constructors. It's been a good season. 2027.
They certainly seemed, at least after race 1, certainly seem to be the only ones who are on the same level as Mercedes at the moment. So they've got to be happy. That start thing is absolutely ridiculous.
Do that again.
Well, they just it doesn't matter. They can qualify like in 10th, and I think if you get qualifying 10th in somewhere like, I don't know, Spain, they'll be leading by turn 1.
It'll be a fair advantage at China and Suzuka as well. They're not short runs down to turn 1.
Yeah. I didn't think it was going to come into play here. I thought they'd gain a couple of places. I didn't think he'd be leading out of the first corner because it's quite a short run here.
It was risky from Leclerc to come back in front of Hadjar. I did think there was a risk he was about to be tagged from the rear and we better see an almighty crash, but really well done. Like surprisingly good.
So if obviously it sounds like slightly gimmicky, but if that is the case that they can do that, they don't have to even qualify at the front. Imagine if they do qualify at the front. God, anyway, they don't have to qualify at the front, but can still be in the mix at the start of a race because, like I say, whilst I don't think the overall pace was as good as the Mercedes, I think they can be in that fight when there's energy management at play, as we saw with him and Russell, with Leclerc and Russell. I think if they can do that again for the rest of the year, then they certainly could be in the mix. So Ferrari definitely. Despite, I think some fans will be unhappy that they seem to throw away a 1-2. I think that's probably a bit of a harsh criticism. So I think they can leave Australia pretty happy.
Now, if you're new to the Late Breaking podcast, firstly, thank you very much for giving us a go on this first race review of the season. And you've been here for 15 minutes, which means you are now contractually obliged to be with us forever. So sorry about that.
Welcome.
In our preview episodes, we make bold predictions. And in these race reviews, we like to review those bold predictions and see where we're right.
Whoa. Like is a strong word here, Ben.
We do review them.
We have to review them contractually.
Okay, more contractual obligations. We have to review them. Sam, what was your bold prediction for this weekend?
I said that there will be an issue in the pit lane of one of the cars that were kind of dueling or fighting around the podium. And there was not a single issue in the pit lane at all. Everyone was fine. How did no one get anything wrong?
But just exclusively in the pit lane.
Yeah, that was it.
Yeah.
And I thought, with the startups, with the turbos, with the fact that these new front wings are a bit dodgy to get on and off. We saw it with Sainz. He had a problem further back. Everyone was quite literally flawless. Still 2.5 second pit stops around the board. Quite annoying.
You know what? That's a first prediction. We've got plenty more. Harry, your bold prediction.
I said there would be at least 10 DNFs from the race. And
there weren't.
We were tracking nicely at one point, and then
they started to come back out onto the track.
I was like, what are you mugging me off for, Aston Martin? Come on.
6, is it? How about 5?
So yeah, it was. What was it? 5 at the end. It wasn't 10. It wasn't anywhere close.
Ben, what about you? Come on, save us. Give us some justification.
New year, new me. I said that there would be at least 18 finishers. Count them up. There were 17. I just what? How is this carried on into this year?
Ben Hocking at the far post. He's jumped for the header. He's gone for it. Oh, it's off the bar.
Every time.
He's headed the post himself.
He's become the post.
Full concussion. I don't even know. It was funny because we went down, I think we went down to 17 and then Stroll reappeared to get it back to 18. And then there was another retirement to go back down to 17. I even said on the preview episode, I should probably go for like 17 or 16, but I didn't feel that was quite bold enough. So I went for 18.
Sorry, mate.
Yeah, well, never mind.
It's a good start.
Well, count them up, folks. That is 0 out of 3. Hope your bold prediction went slightly better than ours. It literally couldn't have gone worse.
Did we bother to get the abacus out of storage?
You know what? The abacus is in storage until it's required. It's picking up dust.
It's in the British Museum at this point. It's not been used for so long.
Yeah, right. Artifact. We've discussed the top 4 finishers in the Grand Prix. That, of course, being the 2 Mercedes and the 2 Ferraris. Now let's talk Norris and Verstappen because they were battling it out over P5. Verstappen obviously coming all the way from P20 to get his 6th place finish, but not quite able to beat Lando Norris, defending world champion, who finishes in 5th. Harry, they were quite a long way behind the top 4 cars. I don't think we went into this season thinking it would be smooth. Let's start with McLaren. It would be smooth for them, but it feels like they've got quite a lot of work to do based on today.
Yeah, that's a long way behind, especially given that they have the Mercedes engine now. I know that's not everything. You have to build the car around it, but yeah, we only had one McLaren obviously in the race. Piastri didn't even make it to the grid. But yeah, Norris's pace was, at least versus the top 4, was just nowhere near, and he seemed to not be very happy on the tyres he was on either. They questioned whether he could do a 1-star, and he was like, "Nah, mate, that's not happening."
It's the most direct a McLaren team radio has ever been.
It's because the other cars got in it. They haven't got to try and juggle things.
No, there's
actually have both race engineers for Norris. Bring the other one over.
But yeah, so pace-wise, it was not ideal. He obviously kept Verstappen behind, but bear in mind where Verstappen started. That's not a great look for Maka. So yeah, I think they obviously, like I said, they only had one car in it, but they were probably saved. I think they would have been behind both Red Bulls if Verstappen had started further up and Hadjar hadn't broken down. I think they probably would have ended up behind them as well. So they might potentially at the moment look like the fourth fastest, despite where they qualified. 4th fastest team at the moment. So bit of work to do for McLaren. It's not a disaster, and they have obviously got this Mercedes engine in the back of their car. So it's salvageable, but right now it's looking like a tough ask to try and beat the Mercedes and the Ferrari.
I think, Sam, based on qualifying, we knew that Mercedes versus McLaren probably wasn't going to be a battle, at least for this weekend, and that's how it played out. But of course, the McLarens were right there with both Ferrari cars in qualifying. Yet Ferrari found a lot more in terms of race pace than what at least Lando Norris never saw it from Oscar Piastri. How worrying is that?
It felt like a bit of a false dawn at qualifying. It felt like we got a bit of a dose of optimism that maybe wasn't genuinely there. We spoke about this in pre-season after Bahrain. It felt like whilst their one-lap pace at McLaren was really good, they're not able to maximise the aerodynamic capabilities of the car, unlike Mercedes, who, of course, same powertrain, same battery. So therefore, the outright horsepower should be the same, but they're struggling. And Norris, it felt like took a really long time to fully adjust to the rhythm of the race, actually. Once he got going, once he had Verstappen behind him for those last 10, 12 laps, he was starting to put in very similar lap times, actually, to Leclerc, to Hamilton in front of him. A couple of times he was faster. That's good progress, but it took him a long time to get there. So either the McLaren's a bit leery and difficult to drive for reasons that maybe we're unsure of right now, or it's really far off the pace and Norris is having to deal with a tough car to drive. And that's more worrying because that's problems to overcome. I'm sure Norris throughout this season, smart lad, good driver, he can adapt to the way these cars need to drive. And if that is the problem, they give it 2 or 3 races and I think he'll be right there again. If it is the McLaren that's genuinely a problem and it's struggling aerodynamically, that's a lot more research, a lot more development, money, time that needs to go into how this car is going to develop. And they do seem really far off the pace. They'll be gutted to know that they were the team last year that was keeping the tyres alive, able to deal with hot temperatures. They were fantastic through mid-speed corners. And there's a lot of mid-speed and high-speed corners here at Melbourne, and they were 35, 40 seconds off the pace from a Ferrari who was well behind them last year. this is not a good start. Bit of a disaster from McLaren. One car doesn't even make it to the grid because he put it in the wall. It's a really shocking and tough start to the season. Verstappen nearly manages to beat you from the back of the grid. That's even more worrying.
Yeah, I didn't necessarily have high expectations for McLaren going into this race, as you've both referenced. I didn't think that the race pace of the McLaren was particularly good versus their qualifying pace, at least from what we've seen so far. But as the race materialized, it didn't take long, to be honest, to figure out that they haven't quite got it at the moment. I thought that there would be a margin between them and the top teams. I didn't think it would be like this. Because even early on, when we had Verstappen obviously fighting through the traffic, I know he's up against, at that point, midfielders and backmarkers, but he's able to do so relatively comfortably. And you see Kimi Antonelli, the way that he recovers the 3 or 4 positions he needs to get back out to the front. And at the same time, you've got Lando Norris, who could in theory be doing exactly the same thing as Antonelli, just not really able to give it a go. Sure, he's clear of the midfield, and that top 4 group, as expected, is pretty comfortably ahead of everyone else. But I don't even know if we can call it a top 4 at this point, because that gap again to the front 2, or definitely Mercedes, feels pretty drastic. It is just one race. We might head to China and they're much better there. There will be car developments. We know that McLaren didn't necessarily go ahead with many upgrades going into the second Bahrain test and into Australia. They are pretty much running what they brought to the first Bahrain test. So there might be a bit more scope to improve versus other teams. But at least for now, it's a touch worrying. And of course, Oscar Piastri, the Australian curse, it's just, what are you going to do at this point? Max Verstappen, 20th to 6th. We're recording this straight after the race, so we've got no feedback on Verstappen and what he felt of that yet, because that could be quite interesting. But what did you make of his recovery drive, Sam?
He is dead inside, isn't he? He absolutely despises this. It was an impressive recovery, despite all the chaos that was going on in the back half of the grid, which we're still yet to properly see. TV management company, I would like to watch that. Alonso at one point was up to 10th. Colapinto's getting in the back of Lawson and is in the wall. You've got cars all over the shop. And yet Max Verstappen, the ever calm expert that he is, was able to work his way through the chaos quickly. I think he was up to 16th after lap 1 and then very quickly got himself into the top 10. It was fast work, good progression, and that's what you expect from Max Verstappen. Shows you that the Red Bull is fast, and we expect it to be good. And the Red Bull powertrain, when it's alive, was operating well. Sorry, Isaac Hadjar. He was quickly thwarted when he got to the back of the actual kind of top 5, top 6 pack, and this is what I was expecting. The moment he kind of made a car that was equal to the Red Bull, it became much more difficult to make any progress. Did exactly what I expected him to do, got no further than that. What
did you make of the drive, Harry?
Yeah, I mean, it was sort of a classic Verstappen recovery drive, wasn't it? His pace was good, relatively so, throughout this one. But like Sam said, just as soon as he gets to a tougher car, which the first one was really the McLaren of Norris, he couldn't really make any further inroads. So, like I said earlier, I think Verstappen. I think Verstappen would have been in the gap between the 30-second gap between Norris and Hamilton. I think that's where the Red Bulls would have sat during this race, but he obviously couldn't get past Norris to even try and do that. So, yeah, it was good. Nothing spectacular from Max, but there are a lot of drivers who wouldn't have got from 20th to 6th. It sounds like we're being a bit blasé about it, but it's just because he's Max Verstappen. You kind of expect 20th to 6th from him. In fact, we expect more, but yeah, it was a solid drive.
So a bit of a disappointment then. We expect more.
Sure.
Come on,
Max.
Say it with some chest.
I kind of think, yeah, as you said, it's as expected. If you'd said like which drivers is he going to be able to overtake relatively easily, he did all of that. And the top of the midfield he struggles with just a little bit more, but not too much. And then he comes up across, Lando Norris, who proves much more difficult to overtake. But given the amount of work he needed to put in to even get to that spot, that's to be expected. I almost think it might be a good thing that Verstappen went out in Q1 yesterday and had to go from 20th to 6th, because I agree with what you said, Harry. if he didn't do that, he might have had the most boring race of all time, going from 5th to 5th. And I think he would be even more scathing about his comments after this Grand Prix, because that might have been, for him, one of the most dull races he's ever done. I do think Red Bull probably sit right now in between Ferrari and McLaren, and that's just here. Again, it might vary as we go to other tracks. But I think he did a really good job. All of these guys are learning how to race these cars, and most of them had the luxury of racing where they should be, if that makes sense. So the likes of whoever you are, if it's a top car like the Mercedes or it's a midfield car like the Haas, they're roughly where they expect to be and can get used to that. Verstappen had to learn how to make all of these overtakes on midfield cars before he could get into the groove of, okay, this is what I'm doing lap after lap when I'm not focused on who's the next guy up the road. So I think overall he's done a pretty good job. Bit worrying for Red Bull overall that they suffered one of the reliability DNFs. It won't be the last one this year, but it does feel for now they've got work to do, just not overly disastrous. In terms of these new regulations, Sam, because that is naturally going to be one of the biggest talking points coming out of this weekend, seen some positivity, some negativity, as you would expect. Where are you on this at the moment?
If I'm going to talk about the most basic way of enjoying a Grand Prix, seeing the lead be exchanged more than once is an enjoyable thing. I'm going to be really basic about that. I liked watching George Russell and Charles Leclerc go back and forth trying to take the lead of each other. I liked the anxiety and excitement of watching Russell lock up into turn one and keeping it on the racetrack. I loved watching Charles Leclerc try and go around the outside. That's what I watched Formula One for. It's just the method that we got to that point. And it's similar to the initial problems that we had with DRS. It felt engineered. And I guess you have to be engineered. Our tagline for Formula One a few years ago was engineered insanity. It's what we have to go for. There is just a little point that it is a little bit like DRS chicken, but battery powered. And battery chickens have been not looked upon too kindly in recent years.
Context LB, thank you very much.
We've got a new one. Good. So
we like free range batteries. What are you going to go for here? Where's the?
I'm not. That's it. The allergy's down. I'm not going down any sweet shopping allergies. Thank you.
Just don't let Bernie Collins anywhere near.
She fucking eats them up. She's the farmer. My point here is, it felt a little artificial at points. The start was terrifying. I think that will get better with time as the drivers learn and adapt. And it's good that we had that pre-race start to build the turbo. I do think that was needed, despite it still being terrifying. I don't know. Once the drivers got into the rhythm of knowing where to harvest, knew when to deploy, the gaps really didn't change at all. Lewis Hamilton was pretty much the only person making proper inroads for that entire last part of the Grand Prix. And the race suddenly went from being quite eventful and interesting to really quite stagnant. And hey, look, we've seen that before with other races. This isn't like it's unique entirely because of these regulations. I'm just worried that it might become a trend when everyone learns how the best and efficient way of dealing with the car is, and the tyres are maybe again the only option to gain time. So look, I'm not furious, but I can't say that I'm enjoying things right now. But there were some positives. We saw the lead exchange multiple times, as I said, and that is a good thing.
This is a dangerous question to an underslept Harry Eid. How did you find that?
Look, like Sam said, I think seeing the lead exchange back and forth, that was at the start was great, and we want more of that. And what I will say with these cars as well, they can follow very closely, even more so than we had previously when we started the ground effect era, because we were probably saying the same things then. I think this is even more so now. So that's really good to see. I like that these cars are a bit more nimble, and look a little sketchier just to drive, to handle. The drivers feeling that. I think George Russell made a comment after the race as well, didn't he, about the straight line. One of the straight line modes was meaning they were sort of understeering whilst in the high speed bit, which is interesting, but it's part of it. So that I will say I like. This will seem contradictory. I hate that there's no overtakes in a corner, like none of them. They were all in a straight line, and that whilst we had that with DRS, I think we DRS, whilst it had many flaws, did often allow for an overtake to happen into a corner more often than not. Whereas here we were just, as Sam said, playing battery chicken, which it's going to be a part of it. I like that it is very tactical. I think that's going to be interesting, but it does worry me a little bit that just everything was all in a straight line, and not a lot of. There weren't a lot of maneuvers. Yeah, a late braking maneuver into a corner. The one you referenced with Hamilton was probably one of the ones I can remember. Oh, and Gasly and Ocon, because
why not?
Obviously, love of the game. But yeah, that does worry me. And like you said, Sam, it then got pretty stagnant towards the end as I think everyone worked out what they were doing. So it's race one. We'll reserve full judgment until we get a few more races in, and I think we'll see vast improvements from teams, whether it's on starts, whether it's on the pace, the battery deployment, etc. And hopefully that will continue to improve. But I didn't enjoy it that much. Is what I'll conclude with.
You got to the point, though. That was good.
Thank you.
I'll rattle through the negatives I have quite quickly. Firstly, the clipping, super clipping, and downshifting in a straight line is atrocious. That's awful. And I don't think that's going to be as much of an issue at some other circuits. I think it will be.
I think China's going to be ruthless at the end of that back straight. Sorry, that's so long for those cars. They're going to be fifth gear by the time they hit the braking zone.
Yeah, I'll admit China I'm not particularly optimistic about either, but I do think when we get into some of these European races that have heavier braking zones, I think at that point that issue will become a little bit better. But at the moment, it's a tough watch. It's also a tough listen as well when you're on board with these cars.
Also hard to know. We've seen on boards when cars break down. I'm like, but are they breaking down? Because they just sound like normal at this point.
They're just groaning all the time.
I'll admit there was one moment I thought Behrman was in trouble.
Yeah, today. It wasn't. It was just clipping.
So that's going to take some getting used to. I also don't particularly like how I think the commentary team has specifically been told to ham up these new regulations as much as they can. It's quite fake. You can see it relatively quickly, I think, which I understand why they're doing it. I just don't like it. And the other thing is what you said about overtakes in the braking zone. Overall, though, I'm not massively negative about this just because this is race one of these regulations, and I don't think the FIA will neglect making tweaks where they need to. Like, can we make tweaks to the harvesting, to the energy management in order to get more overtakes in braking zones to make sure that clipping is reduced? Like, I think with adjustments, something can be made of this. I'm also, in terms of this, how this Grand Prix itself unfolded, particularly with the second half of this race, and there not being too much entertainment, I think that isn't to do with these regulations. I think that's just to do with it's a new set of regulations, and that always happens where we see the gaps between cars and teams, like they really expand to the point where you will get, particularly the first couple of races of the year where there are some DNFs, you will get these 20-second gaps between these teams. That will shrink throughout this set of regulations. So I'm not as worried about that. And I do enjoy that these cars can follow. Like, to see, I don't think the TV direction did a fantastic job of it, but just being able to see, like, Gasly versus Ocon, for example. Ocon is constantly half a second away from Gasly. He's not making an overtake, but he's always there with the prospect of making an overtake. And that in itself is exciting. It's not always like an overtake has to be made for F1 to be enjoyable. It has to be a case of, at any point, if the driver in front makes a small error, the driver behind can do something about it. The chase, like that in itself, is, I think, really exciting. So positives and negatives for me. I'm doing my best Harry impression. I apologize.
It's a nice thanks you got there, mate.
Yeah. Unbelievably, 8 teams managed to score points today. And of course, we've spoken through the first 4 of those, but Haas, Audi, Racing Bulls and Alpine all in the points. I don't know which one you want to tackle first, Sam, but it's good to see that 8 of the 11 teams are already competitive enough to be in the top 10.
I really enjoyed this midfield scrap. It was really fun to see the way that, almost each team got there in a different manner. I thought initially Lindblad did a great job opening the race. This is his first race start, maybe the most difficult kind of race start, maybe other than in the rain, that this could have been for a rookie. And he's up there scrapping with the best immediately. He's going wheel to wheel with Hamilton and Norris, 2 world champions. He's tried to keep Hajar at bay. Norris is behind him for a bit, and he is handling it well. The fight with Max Verstappen, I thought was fantastic. I thought he handled it really, really. He didn't just bow to pressure. He didn't just get out the way. There was no, you're the big sister team, Mr. Max Verstappen coming through. Put up a fight. And it was a good overtake from Max to get the job done. So the fact that he only finishes just behind Behrman, really, really good for his first Grand Prix. And that brings me on to Behrman, who I thought was fantastic today. Really well delivered across the whole Grand Prix, consistent, efficient in overtaking, betters Ocon quite comfortably across the race. And that was fantastic to see that he's carried on that form again from the previous season to the new season. But it was Bortoleto that surprised me the most, not because of his ability, but because of Audi's ability. And I was worried. I thought out of all the teams, they might be the ones that saw proper reliability issues. And of course, we saw with Hulk that he was unable to get to the race start properly. He was unable to really show what he was made of. But after what happened in qualifying yesterday, with the fact that Bortoleto couldn't take part in Q3, I thought there's a real risk that we might not see him make the grid or even go out early. And yet, very competitive, right up there immediately with Haas, with the Racing Bulls beating Alpine. Williams, we'll talk about them in a minute, but see you later, son. They're absolutely nowhere. Bortoleto delivers another great job. And Gasly just doing Gasly things. He's lifting up a car that's probably a pile of poo, and actually he's managed to pull a point out of his backside. So well done, sir. You've done well again.
Harry, I mean, new regulations, or as Komatsu probably sees it, a new recipe. He's cooking again.
He's cooking again. I think Haas were pretty much where we thought they were going to be this race in the end. I think they didn't quite qualify as well, but they got that mega Ferrari engine to do or Ferrari turbo, I should say, for the starts. But yeah, overall, there's some good pace. Behrman especially as well. So it was a solid first race for them. Alpine, we're in the mix. That winning year is really gonna really coming good.
That's what Flav's sticking around for, that 1 point.
But yeah, I think Gasly was still pretty impressive because I don't think the car was brilliant. And then Bortoleto too with Audi, which I don't know, felt more of a surprise than I expected. I didn't necessarily think that they were going to be in the point. We obviously didn't see where Hulkenberg could have got to because he never even made it into the race. So a shame for him. But yeah, Bortoleto was impressive. I think it could be an interesting, if Audi are in that sort of mix with Alpine and Haas, it could be an interesting little, and Racing Bulls, could be an interesting little midfield scrap once again this year.
Yeah, I think it's a great group of cars, and all 4 teams can probably be, Flavio Briatore to one side, can all be quite happy with where they've got to. Haas definitely seem to be better in race trim than they were in qualifying trim, which is a trait they had last year as well. And Behrman in particular, Behrman took advantage of the second virtual safety car, whereas Ocon had the first one. And yet I'm pretty sure Behrman performed an overcut on Ocon. Now, we didn't get great coverage of what was happening in the pits, so we've got no idea if Ocon had an issue there or whatever. But Behrman's pace, once he managed to get by Lindblad, was really impressive. Speaking of Lindblad.
Oh,
got to bring that one out. He was brilliant, and particularly at the start when he's in the mix with cars that he is no right to be fighting. But even after that, understandably went to one side. Like he went about his midfield venture very impressively, and without those turbo issues, who knows what he might have been able to do. He still held off Bortoleto despite that, which is pretty impressive. Bortoleto himself, I think he can be pretty happy with where a new power unit, a new team, where they've got to be P9 in a first race. Very good indeed. And even Alpine, who their qualifying pace was pretty shoddy, I think, seemed to be slightly better in terms of the race. Not as fast as they were at Bahrain, obviously, which is their home now, apparently. But
the Holy Grail.
How they're so good there every year, I don't understand. They have to translate that somewhere else at some point. But at least Gasly's fighting. He's in the mix, which can't be said about all the teams. Speaking of Williams, that overweight Williams, Harry, just...
She's so chonky.
Oh, you fat.
Big Batty Williams.
There it
you
is.
deserve to kick.
Yeah, it hasn't been a great weekend for Williams at all, to be honest. They've gone backwards, haven't they, versus where they were last year, which is not a great place for them to be, especially given all the hype around 2026 for them. They were sort of in the mix, in that well, I would say end of the top 10 fight, but they were never really in the top 10. Interesting call to pit both of them right as the VSC was ending as well. Didn't think that one worked. I mean, it didn't really make much of a difference to their day, but I can see what they were doing, but it ended and they were both in the box, I think. So interesting one. But yeah, they've a bit of head scratching to do over at Grove for Williams. It's not the start that they were all hoping for, that's for sure.
I do wonder if the second half of this race for Williams was essentially testing, because once it became apparent reliability was maybe slightly better than expected and that points probably weren't on the cards, I think they may be committed to testing a few bits, because whilst Albon was P12, to me, Sam, it felt like a very distant P12. Like Williams were very much not part of the group ahead of them.
Yeah, Grove, more like Grave, because the early hopes for any opportunities are dead at Williams. I'm sorry.
Jeez, it is 7 o'clock in the morning and it is morbid here at LBHQ.
I can show you it's worse than their headquarters. Yeah, this is shocking. It's really, really bad, really embarrassing. They built this up to be such a key moment in their journey. And there were two teams that came into this Grand Prix where everyone collectively agreed wouldn't score points. Cadillac were one, Aston Martin were the other. There's a real risk that there might have been a third. And if you could pick before preseason testing who that would have been, I would not have said that it was going to be Williams. And yet here they are, so far away from any development. They had a nightmare with the front wing change due to all the cables and what went on. So science ends up even further back. Albon is trying really hard to get the job done, getting absolutely nowhere. They're so far adrift, even from the likes of Alpine, who have had an engine change, a gearbox change, new battery, developed a whole new load. They've got Flavio Briatore at the helm, who isn't even contractually obliged to be there, and yet they are still behind them comfortably. It is not good. I'm not going to make any apologies for them. The car is ugly. Their performance was uglier. It is not going well.
Man, even the livery catching strays.
It deserves every word.
The only, I don't even know if it's a good thing, maybe a positive thing coming out of this weekend is that they did both get the full race running, so they do have mileage here. And I think they now have a clearer idea, or they should have a clearer idea, how much of their problem right now is related to the car just being overweight. Like, can they make a reasonable assumption of, we are this many seconds behind the midfield scrap, let's call it, and we think X percentage of it is related to the weight of the car? Because then when they, in theory, get that weight down, they'll be able to make gains. But if they come out of this weekend knowing, actually, we could get this car to the weight limit and we're still going to be 10 seconds behind the midfield scrap, that's pretty worrying. But they should have an idea on that one way or the other in the coming days.
It's a similar risk, isn't it, to when McLaren were moaning about being with Honda initially back in the 17's time. And they were like, well, the moment we change our engine, we're going to be good. And they changed their engine and they weren't good. So there's a real risk that could be the case.
The other two teams that didn't score today, unsurprisingly, Cadillac and Aston Martin. Harry, Aston Martin, I think, got more mileage than maybe we were expecting. Stroll technically finished the race, albeit 4 years behind.
15 laps down, but I finished it.
I did it.
And Alonso was in the points for 2 laps, I think.
Hey, that's more than we expected.
I've just seen his start, by the way. I don't know why they didn't show it. It's just vintage Alonso.
Does he brake? Does he get fast enough to need to brake for turn one?
No, it's ridiculous. Yeah, well, Cadillac, we kind of expected them. I've seen some few videos as well. Perez's car just falling apart. There's bits everywhere. It's just shedding.
One of my favourite practice moments this weekend was Bottas going, "I've lost my left wing," and then about 2 laps later, Perez going, "I've lost my right wing." It's just falling
Got
off.
enough for a new car, just round the track.
Yeah, I mean, we didn't expect too much, but Perez had a good old ding dong with Liam Lawson for no reason, and well, obviously Bottas didn't make it to the end, but Perez does, so that in itself is probably a win for them. Aston Martin, way more laps than we ever anticipated. Alonso, as he said, was briefly in the points. Interesting that they told him to retire the car, then obviously sent it back out, and they're like, yeah, we just made an adjustment. Well, then why did you say we're retiring? What's that about?
My favourite part of that announcement, actually, I'm just going to read the first paragraph. Today was primarily an opportunity to learn more about the AMR26. Both cars took to the start, and when it became clear we could not compete for points, we chose to pit and check the cars over. What do you mean when it became clear?
I think that was clear in February, wasn't it?
I think so. I think it was clear in Bahrain at the latest. You ain't going to be in the points.
They're living off the hopium of Fernando Alonso, man. He put it in 10th in lap 1. They're like, oh, hello. We might be on it.
Do it. What didn't we know in the data?
I actually don't think I can bring myself to watch the Alonso start because, as I'm sure it's impressive, that's painful. Just like the glimpse of what could be, and then as soon as like the race unfolds, Aston Martin and its lack of pace becomes apparent. They got more mileage than I thought they were going to be able to when Lance Stroll was talking about a 15-lap maximum based on the vibrations of the car. He was able to do, I'm not going to say a full race because I think he did maybe about 40 laps of the 58 that were scheduled, but he still managed to make the checkered flag. Alonso retired twice, which is just impressive, and I don't even know if he's ever done that. But credit to them for doing that, by the way, because I thought other teams, sometimes there's logic in this, part of my reason for the bold prediction was I think there will be a lot classified because some, whilst they might be out of the running, might just stay out there to get some mileage rather than, even if they're not competing for points. Something we see a lot more commonly in IndyCar, for example. And Aston Martin took that opportunity. I was wondering if the likes of Hulkenberg might do that. We don't know what the issue was exactly, but if they had a chance to get out 20 laps into this race, maybe they would choose to do that. So I think Aston Martin were right to keep going with Lance Stroll and give Alonso, 7 stints. But yeah, we weren't expecting points here.
McLaren could have done it with Piastri as well, right? Send him back out.
Yeah, that'd have been all right, wouldn't it?
3 wheels on the car, why not?
Yeah. Shall we do the first driver of the day of 2026?
The verdict is in. You're the driver of the day. You're the driver of the day. You're good at driving.
This is the one everyone wants to win. The first driver of the day of 2026. Sam, who gets the honours?
It's right up there with the LBs, isn't it, this one? 3 options for me. 3. Can't do that loudly. Will be murdered by people in this house. For me, it's between Russell, Behrman and Lindblad. I'm going to take the easy option. I'll give it to Russell for the first dub of the season. But those 2 youngsters back in 7th and 8th, really, really brilliant. Really good performance. So well done to them.
Harry?
Yeah, I think those were my 3 as well. I might have chucked Leclerc in as well, but I'll go for Lindblad, given it's his first race, and the fact that Martin Brundle described him as a bandit. I like that a lot.
He did.
Yeah.
Limblandit, yes.
I was waiting for it. It's so bad.
Oh dear. I'm going to keep the variety up. I'm going to go with Ollie Behrman, but those were 3 contenders for me as well. Very impressive Grand Prix. Was considering giving it to Russell, but that post-race radio did it for me. Can't give it to him after that.
Disqualified.
Yep.
I don't know. That's what put him to the top for me.
Of course.
Very nice. I can't wait for him to win in China and go, King of the Castle, King of the Castle.
So I am going to go with Ollie Behrman. Very impressive run to 7th place. Where there is a driver of the day, there must be a worse driver of the day.
Get in the bin, 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 bin. Worst driver of the day. Bin, bin, bin. Worst driver of the day. Bin, bin, bin. You suck at driving.
Harry, who wins first worst driver of the day?
I don't really know. It's hard to know if anyone had a really bad day. I think they're all just surviving out there. I will give it to. Can I give it to Piastri for not making the start?
Australia will hate you.
Yeah, it's yours
you
to
can.
say.
Sorry, Australia. It's Oscar Piastri.
Sam.
It's Liam Lawson. Didn't get off the grid.
All right, Sergio Perez over it.
Sergio's just called me up again. I'll give you 1 million Kit Kats if you search Liam Lawson. I've said, hell yeah. Can be bribed by Kit Kat. Yeah, just got like a scrap again for no reason. The thing I called out about Liam Lawson at the start of this blimming season was his racecraft and how he always gets into trouble. It's day one, man. It's day one. You're scrapping with a car 4 seconds slower than you. Yeah, it just wasn't good. And then when you look at where his teammate was able to get to on his first Grand Prix, the fact that he's starting in front, I know the start wasn't great, but he couldn't even get back into that fight. It's not good.
Yeah, I feel like worst driver of the day comes with a heavy asterisk this week more than any other because there might be some issues going on with cars that we just don't know about yet. I was considering giving it to Franco Colapinto until I saw what he had to do at the start. And I was like, you know what? Just for that move alone, you're escaped from worst driver of the day. And instead, I gave it to Liam Lawson as well, because it's not ideal when your rookie teammate, the only rookie on the grid, is very comfortably fighting within the points. And even with the poor start, he didn't make anywhere near the progress I thought he was going to. I thought he'd at least get back in the mix with the rest of the midfield. And he didn't really. And big brain Strat.
Bob, we're gonna need you to box for wets. What? It's not even raining out. What are you talking about? Yeah, and Bob, if you get a chance, let your teammate pass you. What? He crashed out. He's not even in the race.
And congrats, Ferrari. Well done. Harry, big brain Strat.
It's Ferrari. Like, I was not going to be too critical because, like I said earlier on, I'm not sure whether it would have made a huge difference, but not at least pitting one of them onto the VSC. It reeked of McLaren at Qatar last year when everyone else pit and they didn't.
Is that papaya I can smell?
Yeah, a little bit. You just scratch off the red on the Ferrari. It's actually papaya underneath. But yeah, sorry, Ferrari. Good start.
It would also be very Ferrari to have last year's McLaren and still not be able to win in it. But yeah, conspiracy theory there, right? I'm going to go with Ferrari as well. More specifically, I will go with Lewis Hamilton's team radio about what was going on, because he delivered a few great lines that showed that things haven't been completely patched over yet, despite the change in engineer for him. Sam?
I'm with you. I will go Ferrari, but just to offer some variety, I really enjoyed Lando Norris having the offer of, hey, you think you could go 26 laps on medium tyres? No, not a chance. 2 laps later, yeah, box onto medium tyres. Yeah. Love that. Really good. So 24 laps is fine, but Ferrari definitely take it.
Well done, Ferrari. This is the race you wanted to win, the race to be the first big brain Strat of 2026. Harry, what was your moment of the race?
It's the Colapinto and go penalty for me.
So
yes.
Good. What a graphic.
That was mine.
It's an easy win. That's unreal. I don't know whether that's on purpose or not, but it's superb. Well done, F1. Yeah, that really got me. I only had a couple more, mainly we've already mentioned, but when we got to lap 4, there were 20 seconds to from first to 20th. I was like, that's some field spread. That's not ideal.
True.
But yeah, anyway, Colapinto and go penalty, easy one.
That was mine as well.
So good. Yeah, so good.
So good. I'd like to think that he's in the car and he's actually told, just as it said, like, okay, you have a Colapinto and go penalty. It's like, well, I'm already Colapinto, so now I'm going to go. Cool. That's how it works.
Oh, it's so good. What poor intern has tried to quickly write up that graphic to put it live, and they've copied and pasted the name into the wrong box, haven't they?
I had 2 other ones, which were the multiple sweet shop analogies just...
No, that can't be a moment.
Oh, but that's the worst moment of the race.
Yeah, can we have a worse moment of the race?
The other thing I've found quite funny was like the battery graphics that we had, and how like at the beginning they were like, we'll probably have them at some point this race, and then they had some, and then they came back with another set that were completely different from the first lot. It's like, do you not think that maybe that was a good thing to test in testing, like before the first race? It felt like they were just making it up.
They could have literally used footage from last year's races and just put graphics over the top to see if it worked. Like it is possible.
And why not? That would have been a really useful graphic when we had the Leclerc-Russell battle to understand more what was going on there.
They also need something on the side on the timing board to show who's got the 1 second gap to the overtake mode, like a little green on their name or something.
Just like a little like lightning bolt or something.
Something.
Right? Like
highlight their name in yellow. I don't care what it is. Just do something that shows when we can't see every car.
I thought they were going to do that. I was surprised they didn't.
Yeah, I didn't want to call them out before it didn't happen, but now I can. Like I have.
What was your moment of the race, Sam?
Well, you took all the good ones, so I'm going back to George Borat Russell with, I like this car, I like this engine, very nice.
Of course you have.
Big up the cringe, Russ. So it's a win in my book.